You do not want a mate, the blind Omega said, and every voice in Moonspire Hall vanished. Alpha King Adrian Blackwood slowly turned toward the sound. 12 women had already crossed the silver floor before his throne, each dressed in silk, moonstone, and carefully practiced confidence. The 13th still stood near the ceremonial circle, pale and trembling after Adrian had dismissed her with a single look. Musicians held their bows above silent strings. Noble families watched from the balconies. No one had dared question the king all evening. Then a young woman hidden behind a velvet curtain had spoken as though his crown carried no weight at all. Come forward, Adrian said. The order rolled through the hall, deep enough to make crystal glasses hum. Evelyn Carter tightened both hands around her white cane. She could not see the hundreds of faces turning toward her, but she heard gowns whisper across marble, shoes shift uneasily, and someone near the front release a startled breath. Her cousin Madison caught her sleeve. Stay where you are, she whispered. You have already embarrassed us. Evelyn gently pulled free. The cane tapped once, then again, guiding her beyond the curtain. Each sound seemed impossibly loud. She felt the warmth of the chandeliers above, smelled winter roses arranged around the mating altar, and beneath their sweetness detected something sharper, metallic and wrong. It was the same strange scent that had followed every woman who approached the throne. Who allowed an unregistered Omega into this ceremony? Counselor Silas Crow demanded. She is only a servant, Diane Carter answered quickly. She is blind and confused. Please forgive her, Your Majesty. Evelyn stopped. Confused. The word settled over her like dust, familiar and suffocating. People had used it whenever she noticed what they preferred to hide. Adrian studied her pale, unfocused eyes and the worn cane resting beside her boot. She wore no jewels and no ceremonial perfume, only a simple blue dress that marked her as someone meant to disappear into the background. Yet his wolf, restless all night, had become completely still. You accused your king of dishonesty, Adrian said. Explain yourself. Evelyn raised her chin toward his voice. I said you do not want a mate. A nervous murmur moved through the room. And what makes you believe you understand my intentions? He asked. Because every woman who came near you said exactly what you expected. That sounds like wisdom. No, Evelyn replied. It sounds like fear. The silence that followed felt alive. Madison whispered Evelyn's name as a warning, but Evelyn continued. They praised your strength. They promised obedience. They smiled while their hearts raced so hard I could hear them from across the room. You did not reject them because they failed to please you. You rejected them because none of them told you the truth. Adrian leaned forward. And what truth have you discovered? Evelyn listened carefully. Beneath his calm voice was a rough second rhythm, like a trapped animal pressing against a locked door. She also heard the faint strain in his breathing whenever the scented smoke drifted toward the throne. You are in pain, she said. For the first time that evening, the Alpha King had no immediate answer. Silas stepped forward, but Adrian lifted one hand, stopping him. His gaze never left the blind woman standing alone in the center of the hall. Bring the blind Omega to me. Evelyn heard the guards approach before their boots crossed the silver inlay surrounding the ceremonial floor. Their armor shifted with each measured step, but Adrian stopped them with a quiet command. She can walk on her own. Evelyn tightened her grip on the cane and moved toward his voice. The marble beneath her feet was polished so smoothly that each tap returned as a clean echo, telling her where the column stood and how far the throne remained. 20 feet. 15. 10. The strange metallic scent grew stronger with every step. So did the uneven rhythm beneath Adrian's controlled breathing. He truly was in pain, though everyone in the hall seemed determined to call it anger. Evelyn, Diane whispered from behind her, forcing sweetness into her voice. Please come back. You are overwhelmed. Evelyn paused. She remembered those same words from earlier that evening, when their carriage had stopped beneath the towering gates of Moonspire Palace. Diane had taken Madison by the hand and left Evelyn to find the steps alone. Inside the entrance hall, servants had accepted the noble guests' cloaks while barely noticing the quiet young woman in the plain blue dress. That had been exactly what Diane wanted. You will remain behind Madison, she had warned. You will carry what she gives you, speak only when necessary, and never mention that you are an Omega. Evelyn had asked why her rank needed to be hidden. Diane's answer had come without hesitation. Because this ceremony is meant for women who have something to offer. Madison had stood nearby while a maid fastened moonstones into her golden hair. Do not take it personally, she had said. The king needs a Luna who can stand before the Pax. Someone who can read treaties, recognize enemies and look the court in the eye. Evelyn had felt the familiar sting, but she had not lowered her head. A person can recognize an enemy without seeing his face. Madison had laughed then, softly enough to pretend it was kindness. Now, standing before the Alpha King, Evelyn heard no laughter at all. How far am I from you? She asked. A few nobles gasped at the directness of the question. Adrian answered, 6 feet. She took 3 careful steps and stopped. Warmth from the ceremonial braziers brushed one side of her face. Cold air drifted from the high windows on the other. Directly ahead, Adrian's presence seemed to press against the room, powerful but restrained. You said I am in pain, he said. What else do you believe you know? Evelyn listened. His heartbeat remained steady, but something beneath it strained whenever smoke curled from the altar. I know the pain becomes worse when each candidate approaches. Silas Crow gave a sharp, dismissive laugh. An impressive guess. It is not a guess. Evelyn turned toward his voice. Every woman carries the same perfume. It is also burning beneath the throne. The hall stirred. Adrian's fingers shifted against the carved armrest. And why does it not affect you? Evelyn lifted her chin. Because no one considered me worthy enough to wear it. The words landed more heavily than she intended. For one brief moment, pity seemed to move through the crowd. Evelyn did not want it. She had survived too many years without their approval to need it now. Adrian descended one step from the throne. His voice came closer, quieter, and far more dangerous to the secrets surrounding him. Then perhaps being overlooked is the reason you notice what everyone else missed. Evelyn heard the faint scrape of Silas stepping backward. Beneath the scent of roses and silver, fear entered the room. Adrian turned toward the ceremonial altar, and Evelyn heard the room shift with him. Ropes brushed against polished stone. Guards adjusted their stance. Somewhere above, a clock marked the quarter hour with 3 low chimes. The mating ceremony had already lasted far longer than tradition allowed, yet no one dared suggest that the Alpha King had failed. One by one, the finest women from the northern Pax had entered the silver circle. Lady Caroline Mercer had offered him a jeweled compass set to point toward destiny. Rebecca Shaw had promised the loyalty of 3 powerful territories. Grace Whitmore had sung an ancient moon hymn in a voice so clear that several guests wept. Adrian had dismissed them all. The court believed he was impossible to please. Evelyn heard something else. Each time a candidate approached, his breathing tightened. Each time the ceremonial perfume drifted toward him, the second rhythm beneath his heartbeat became restless. It was not pride rejecting them. It was instinct warning him. Remove the incense, Adrian ordered. No one moved. The silence stretched until Silas Crow cleared his throat. Your Majesty, the blend was prepared according to royal custom. Moonflower, winter rose, and blessed cedar. It has been used at mating ceremonies for generations. Then removing it should cause no concern, Adrian replied. 2 attendants hurried toward the altar. Their steps slowed as they reached the bronze vessel beneath the throne. Evelyn tilted her head. The metallic note was stronger now, bitter beneath the flowers, like coins left in rain. One attendant lifted the vessel. A faint scraping sound followed. Something heavier than ash shifted inside. Set it on the floor, Evelyn said. Silas answered before Adrian could. You are not in a position to give orders. Neither are you, Adrian said quietly. The vessel touched the marble with a soft ring. Evelyn approached, following the echo. She stopped several feet away and lowered her cane. Do not touch it with bare hands, she warned. A nervous murmur moved through the hall. Madison's perfume drifted from somewhere behind her, carrying the same sweetness. Evelyn remembered standing beside her cousin before the ceremony, while a royal attendant had pressed a silver vial into Madison's palm. Every candidate had received one. Every candidate had worn it. The women were not failing your test, Evelyn said. The test was designed to make them fail. Adrian descended another step. Explain. Their perfume and the incense share the same metallic scent. When they came close, the air around you changed. Your heartbeat slowed for one beat. Then your wolf reacted. She paused, listening to the silence around Silas. His breath had become shallow. Someone wanted you to believe that every possible mate was wrong for you. The statement passed through the hall like a cold draft. Adrian turned toward his counselor, who supervised the preparations. Silas answered too quickly. The palace staff under my authority, but this accusation is absurd. She cannot even see what she claims to have discovered. Evelyn faced his voice. That is why you did not expect me to discover it. No one laughed. Adrian came closer until the warmth of his presence reached her hands. What is inside the vessel? He asked. Evelyn breathed carefully. Beneath the flowers and cedar, she recognized the sharp scent from old coins her father had once kept locked away from wolves. Silver, she said. Ground finely enough to hide in smoke. A chair scraped near the front of the hall. Someone whispered a prayer. Adrian's voice became dangerously calm. Seal every door. The great doors closed with a thunderous echo, and the sound rolled through Moonspire Hall like a warning from the mountain itself. Evelyn heard locks slide into place, followed by the measured steps of royal guards taking position along every exit. The nobles began whispering at once, their polished confidence giving way to fear. No one leaves until the incense and every ceremonial vial have been examined, Adrian said. His voice remained calm, but the room obeyed him immediately. Silas Crow moved closer to the throne. Your Majesty, surely you do not intend to delay the ceremony because of an Omega servant's imagination. Diane seized the opportunity. Counselor Crow is right. Evelyn has always confused sounds and scents. Her blindness makes ordinary things seem threatening to her. Evelyn felt those words more sharply than the cold air touching her face. Diane had repeated them for years, usually after Evelyn noticed a whispered bargain or recognized footsteps outside a locked room. Doubt had always been their easiest way to silence her. Madison stepped forward, her jeweled shoes clicking against the marble. She is jealous, she said. She knew she could never be presented, so she ruined the evening for women who actually belonged here. A few guests murmured in agreement. The judgment in their voices was familiar. Evelyn stood alone near the ceremonial circle, her plain dress surrounded by silk and silver. She could not see their expressions, but she knew exactly what they believed. A blind Omega should be grateful for shelter, quiet in public, and invisible beside those considered more valuable. Kneel and apologize, Diane whispered. Do it now, before you shame us further. Evelyn lowered her cane until its tip rested firmly against the floor. No, the single word silenced the nearest conversations. You will show respect in the king's hall, Silas said. Respect is not the same as obedience, Evelyn replied. A wave of alpha authority suddenly spread through the chamber. It pressed against her shoulders like the weight of a coming storm. Several guests lowered their heads. Evelyn's hands trembled around her cane, and her heartbeat quickened, but she remained standing. Adrian had not ordered her to kneel. Someone else was using his presence to frighten her. Enough, Adrian said, and the pressure vanished. His steps descended from the throne until he stood only a few feet away. Who commanded her to kneel? No one answered. Evelyn heard Madison retreat half a step. Adrian turned toward the attendants near the bronze vessel. Open it. A metal lid lifted. The hall filled with a sharper trace of silver. One of the royal healers approached and carefully examined the gray powder inside. The silence lasted only a few seconds, but it felt much longer. The Omega is correct, the healer finally said. There is silver dust mixed with the incense. Shock swept through the gathering. Diane released Evelyn's sleeve as though it had suddenly become dangerous to touch her. Adrian faced the assembled court. Every woman who receives ceremonial perfume will surrender her vial for testing. Glass containers were collected one by one. When an attendant reached Madison, she hesitated. Evelyn heard the tiny click of a stopper being hidden inside a beaded purse. Madison, Evelyn said softly, give them the vial. Her cousin's breathing stopped. Then Silas Crow spoke from beside the throne. Search the blind Omega first. The accusation settled over Moonspire Hall with such precision that Evelyn understood it had been waiting for the right moment. Silas did not sound surprised. He sounded prepared. "Search her cloak," he ordered. Adrian's voice stopped the guards before they moved. "You do not command my guard." The correction was quiet, but Silas immediately stepped back. Adrian turned toward Evelyn. "Will you permit the royal healer to examine your belongings?" Evelyn heard the difference in his question. He was not taking permission from her. He was giving it. "Yes," she answered. "But Madison should be searched at the same time." Her cousin made a small sound of protest. Diane rushed to defend her. "Madison is an honored candidate. Evelyn is a servant who has already disrupted the ceremony." "Then an innocent candidate has nothing to fear," Adrian said. Two female attendants approached. One carefully examined Evelyn's cloak, sleeves, and simple cloth purse. The other moved toward Madison, whose breathing grew faster with every step. Evelyn remained still, listening to the faint rattle of glass inside her cousin's beaded bag. "Nothing on the Omega," the first attendant announced. A moment later, the second attendant spoke. "I found a ceremonial vial. Every candidate received one," Madison said quickly. "That proves nothing." "There is something else," the attendant replied. A folded paper crackled as it was removed from the purse. Silas took one sharp breath. Evelyn noticed. Adrian noticed her noticing. "Read it," he ordered. The attendant unfolded the paper. "Wait until the blind girl enters the silver circle. Place the second vial in her cloak. The court will believe she poisoned the king." Madison began crying before the final sentence was spoken. Diane whispered her name in disbelief. Silas remained perfectly silent. Evelyn felt no satisfaction, only a deep, weary sadness. Madison had mocked her for being invisible, yet had depended on that invisibility to make the plan work. "Who gave you the note?" Adrian asked. "I do not know," Madison answered. "It was left in my room." Her voice trembled. "I only wanted the ceremony to continue. I thought if Evelyn was removed, you might choose me." "So you agreed to condemn her without knowing who asked?" Adrian's disappointment was colder than anger. Madison had no answer. Adrian turned toward Evelyn. "You accused me of wanting lies. It seems you were surrounded by them long before you entered this hall." "So were you," she replied. A few nobles gasped, but Adrian came closer. "You are either very brave or completely unaware of danger." "I am aware of danger," Evelyn said. "I simply do not confuse a crown with truth." For the first time, she heard something almost like amusement in his breath. "Tell me what you hear now." Evelyn listened. The incense had been removed, and his heartbeat was stronger, but the second rhythm remained guarded. "Your wolf is quieter." "And me. You are waiting to see whether I will flatter you." Adrian descended the final step. "Will you?" "No." "Then tell me what you believe I need." Evelyn lifted her face toward him. "Not obedience. Honesty." The entire hall seemed to hold its breath. Adrian reached out, then paused. "May I take your hand?" Evelyn hesitated before placing her fingers in his palm. Warmth moved through her at once, not painful but startlingly familiar. Beneath Adrian's heartbeat, the second rhythm rose like a distant call finally answered. His wolf spoke one word inside him with absolute certainty. "Mate." Adrian did not release Evelyn's hand at once. The warmth between them deepened, steady and unmistakable, while the restless presence beneath his heartbeat settled into a calm she had never heard before. For one suspended moment, Moonspire Hall seemed to disappear. There was only his hand around hers, the quiet pull between them, and a word he did not speak aloud. Evelyn felt it anyway, like moonlight pressing through a closed door. She withdrew her fingers first. The sudden distance left the air colder. Adrian remained silent, but his breathing changed. Not fear. Recognition. "What happened?" Evelyn asked. "Nothing the court needs to hear yet," he replied. Silas stepped forward before she could question him. "Your Majesty, this performance has gone far enough." A suspicious note appears in one candidate's purse. The incense is conveniently discovered, and now the blind Omega claims she can interpret your heartbeat. "We have heard accusation after accusation, but no proof of who placed the silver." Adrian turned toward him. The healer confirmed the substance. "The substance, yes. Not the culprit." Silas's voice softened with practiced concern. Someone may be guiding this entire scene. Evelyn listened to the room. Several nobles shifted uneasily. Doubt was returning because doubt required less courage than truth. The royal healer examined the folded note again. There is no signature, he said. The ink is common. The paper came from palace stores. Then anyone could have written it, Silas replied, including someone who wished to frame Lady Madison. Diane seized the opening. Evelyn knew Madison carried the vial. She stood beside her before the ceremony. Madison said nothing. Her silence hurt more than denial. Adrian faced Evelyn. Did anyone handle your belongings tonight? Madison took my cane when she pushed me toward the ceremonial floor. Evelyn heard her cousin inhale sharply. I only moved it aside, Madison said. I did not open it. Open it, Adrian repeated. The question landed with immediate weight. Evelyn's grip tightened. Her cane had belonged to her father. The carved handle could be unscrewed, but only her family knew that. A guard brought it to the healer. Wood turned against metal with a faint scrape. Something small slid from the hollow shaft and struck the marble. A cloth packet. The healer unfolded it carefully. The metallic scent reached Evelyn before anyone spoke. More silver dust, he said. The hall erupted into whispers. Evelyn stood perfectly still, though the floor seemed to shift beneath her feet. That was not mine. Silas answered gently, almost regretfully. Of course you would say that. Adrian's heartbeat hardened. His wolf remained calm near Evelyn, yet the evidence lay between them. She could hear the conflict inside him. Crown against instinct, duty against the strange certainty neither of them understood. Someone placed it there, she said. When? Silas asked. While every guard watched you? Evelyn turned toward his voice. My cane was out of my hands. You know that. I know only what this court has witnessed. Adrian raised one hand, silencing the hall. Evelyn Carter will be escorted to the Eastern Guest Chamber under royal protection until the investigation is complete. Silas objected. Protection. She is not convicted of anything, Adrian replied. Two guards approached, respectful but firm. Evelyn found Adrian's position by the rhythm of his breathing. You are making a mistake, she said quietly. Perhaps, he answered. But I will not make it carelessly. As she was led away, Evelyn heard a faint click beneath the throne, followed by the whisper of a hidden panel closing. She stopped. Silas stood beside Adrian. So did Marcus. Only one of them had moved. Evelyn turned her face toward the throne. Your enemy is not outside these doors, she said. He is standing beside them. Evelyn counted the footsteps outside the Eastern Guest Chamber until she knew the guards had settled into their positions. Two near the door. One at the end of the corridor. A fourth pacing beneath the window every 30 seconds. Adrian had called it protection, but the locked door still sounded like judgment. She rested her cane across her knees and listened to the palace breathe. Wind pressed against the tall windows. Pipes murmured behind the walls. Far below, Moonspire Hall remained crowded with nobles who had arrived expecting a mating ceremony, and now found themselves trapped inside a royal investigation. Evelyn closed her eyes out of habit, though darkness had been her world for 14 years. She replayed the final moments before the guards escorted her away. The click beneath the throne. The hidden panel. The faint movement beside Adrian. Silas had spoken immediately afterward, but his voice had come from several feet away. Marcus had been closer to the throne, yet his boots had remained still. There had been someone else behind the carved wall. Evelyn rose and tapped the floor with her cane. The eastern chamber answered in clean echoes except near the fireplace, where the sound returned hollow. She crossed the room and pressed her palm against the stone. Cool air touched her fingers through a narrow seam. A passage ran behind the wall. Guard, she called. The door opened but only a few inches. I need Beta Marcus. The king ordered that you remain here. Then tell the king his hidden corridors are not empty. Minutes later Marcus entered. His measured footsteps stopped near the fireplace. How did you know? The room told me. She guided his hand toward the seam. Together they found a concealed latch beneath the mantel. The stone panel opened with a low scrape, revealing a narrow passage sloping downward. Marcus lit a lantern and entered while Evelyn followed the echo of his steps. The tunnel ended beneath the ceremonial hall, directly behind the throne. Shelves lined the small chamber. Glass vials clicked together when Marcus lifted a wooden box. "Silver powder," he said. "More than enough for every ceremony this year." Papers rustled. Royal supply records. Payments signed under false names. Instructions for weakening Adrian before the blood moon. At the bottom of the box lay a ring stamped with Silas Crow's family crest. "We have proof," Marcus whispered. A distant howl rolled through the stone above them. Evelyn froze. It was not anger. It was pain deeper and more desperate than anything she had heard in Adrian's heartbeat. "The blood moon has risen," Marcus said. Another howl followed, shaking dust from the ceiling. Voices erupted in the hall. Furniture scraped. The guards shouted for everyone to remain calm. Evelyn turned toward the tunnel entrance. "He is losing control." Marcus blocked her path. "It is not safe. Neither is leaving him alone with people who already believe he is a monster." They hurried back through the passage. By the time the hidden panel opened, the ceremonial hall had fallen into terrified silence. Adrian stood within the silver circle, transformed into a massive black wolf, his breathing uneven as moonlight poured through the high windows. Guards held silver-tipped staffs at a distance. Silas raised his voice above the panic. "The king is beyond reason. No one approach him." Evelyn stepped out from behind the throne. Adrian turned toward the sound of her cane. Every person in the hall moved back. Evelyn moved forward. "Adrian," she called, using his name instead of his title. The wolf lowered his head, and for the first time that night, the Alpha King listened. Evelyn crossed the silver circle one careful step at a time, guided by the uneven rhythm of Adrian's breathing. The black wolf stood nearly 4 feet at the shoulder, powerful enough to make the marble tremble whenever he shifted his weight. Yet what Evelyn heard was not rage. It was confusion, pain, a desperate struggle to remain himself while the blood moon pulled at every wounded instinct inside him. "Stop her," Silas ordered. No guard moved. Marcus emerged from behind the throne carrying the wooden box from the hidden chamber. "Let her pass," he said. "She is the only person he has not tried to avoid." Evelyn set her cane on the floor and walked forward with one hand extended. The nobles drew back until the edges of the hall were crowded with frightened whispers. Adrian released a low warning sound. Evelyn stopped 6 feet away. "I know you can hear me," she said. "They have spent years teaching you that pain makes you dangerous. It does not. It means someone has been hurting you." The wolf's breathing remained rough, but he did not retreat. Evelyn took another step. "You asked me what you needed. This is the answer. You need someone who will tell you the truth when everyone else is afraid." Silas moved toward the ceremonial altar. Evelyn heard the quiet slide of metal beneath his sleeve and the quick change in Marcus's breathing. "Do not let him near the king," she warned. Marcus and 2 guards stepped between Silas and the silver circle. A small silver blade fell from the counselor's hand and rang against the floor. The hall erupted in shocked voices. "This proves nothing," Silas said. "The creature before you is no longer fit to rule." Marcus opened the wooden box. "These records prove you ordered silver brought into the palace for months. Your ring was found beside the payments." Silas's confidence finally cracked. The kingdom needed stability. "You created his suffering and called it instability," Evelyn replied. She turned back toward Adrian. The wolf had lowered his head, but the strain inside him remained. Evelyn moved close enough to feel the heat of his breath across her hands. "I am going to touch you," she said softly. "You may step away." He stayed. Her palm rested against the thick fur between his eyes. Warmth surged through her stronger than before, carrying fear, loneliness, and an exhausted hope he had never allowed the court to see. "Come back," she whispered. "Not for the throne. Come back because you are still here." Adrian's breathing slowed. The second rhythm beneath his heart aligned with the first. Around them the moonstone pillars began to hum, filling the hall with a clear silver tone. The black wolf lowered himself until his forehead rested against Evelyn's hand. No one spoke. Even Silas fell silent as the creature he had called unreasonable chose gentleness over fear. Moonlight gathered around Adrian, softening his shape until the great wolf was gone and the king stood within the circle once more. Marcus placed a cloak around his shoulders. Adrian looked past the guards, the nobles, and the counselor being escorted away. His attention remained on Evelyn. She reached for her cane, unaware that every person in the hall had begun to bow. Adrian crossed the small distance between them. Then, before the families who had hidden her and the court that had doubted her, the Alpha King lowered himself to one knee. The hall remained silent as Adrian knelt before Evelyn. She could not see the expression on his face, but she heard the steadiness in his breathing and the quiet astonishment moving through the gathered court. Kings did not kneel before omegas. They certainly did not kneel before women the court had tried to erase. "Why are you doing this?" Evelyn asked. Adrian reached for her hand but stopped before touching it. "Because you were the only person in this room who spoke to me as a man instead of a throne." Evelyn lowered her chin toward his voice. "A bond does not give you the right to claim me." "I know." His answer came without hesitation. "I felt what you were to me the moment you took my hand, but I will not use destiny to take away your choice." The words traveled across Moonspire Hall, reaching every noble family that had taught its daughters obedience mattered more than truth. Diane began to speak, but Adrian rose and turned toward her. "Evelyn Carter will never again be hidden, dismissed, or called a burden in my kingdom." Madison stood nearby, weeping quietly. "Evelyn, I am sorry." Evelyn listened to the regret in her cousin's voice. It sounded real, but forgiveness was not something she would offer merely because an audience was watching. "Then become someone who would not make the same choice again," she said. Marcus ordered the remaining ceremonial incense removed and the hidden records secured. Silas would face judgment before the full council, while every woman affected by the silver would receive care from the royal healers. Adrian returned to Evelyn. "I cannot promise that I will always know the right path," he said. "Then listen when someone tells you that you are wrong." A soft breath of laughter escaped him. "Will you be that person?" Evelyn considered the question. She heard the guards lowering their staffs, the nobles waiting, and the moonstone pillars humming around them. For the first time, the entire hall was listening to her without pity. "I will stand beside you," she said, "but not behind you." Adrian placed his open hand before hers. Evelyn found it and rested her palm against his. Silver light spread through the ceremonial floor, warm as sunrise, and the bond between them settled into place without command or surrender. Adrian leaned closer. His voice meant only for her. "You were the first person who did not fear the darkness in me." Evelyn smiled. "And you were the first who never asked me to escape mine."